It's everyone's friend, it's Tyler. It's everyone's friend, it's Tyler.
For this video, I'm going to respond to many parts that I found to be wrong in regards to this video that Joe Biden did about this executive order for guns. Now, I'm pretty much neutral either way when it comes down to this issue, but I noticed that Joe Biden said like a lot of stuff that were just flat out wrong. And so for this video, I'm just going to respond to the parts in which I thought it was just completely wrong. So without further hesitation, let us begin.
Nothing I'm about to recommend in any way impinges on the Second Amendment. They're phony arguments suggesting that these are Second Amendment rights at stake from what we're talking about. But no amendment to the Constitution is absolute. You can't yell fire in a crowded movie theater. We call it freedom of speech. From the very beginning, you couldn't own any weapon you wanted to own. From the very beginning the Second Amendment existed, certain people weren't allowed to have weapons. So the idea is just bizarre to suggest that some of the things we're recommending are contrary to the Constitution.
Now, the first claim that he immediately stated is that you cannot shout fire in a crowded theater. However, that claim is not true. This has actually been done by the Supreme Court a long time ago, and pretty much you can in fact shout fire in a crowded theater. Now, according to Brandenburg versus Ohio, which was like a Supreme Court case that happened a long time ago, back in 1969, the court held that the government cannot punish speech that is directing to inciting or producing lawless action and is likely to stir up some sort of like chaos or whatever. And of course, that is pretty much, protected under free speech. Not to mention the various different examples in which people can in fact shout fire. For example, song lyrics have fire in it. You can also say like fire if you're a play actor and stuff. So yes, even in contexts in which there's like no fire, people are protected under the First Amendment to say fire in a crowded theater. Now the second thing he stated is that the Constitution and the amendments are not 100% all the time. You don't have to apply it 100% of the time. Now, of course, that is not, true per se. It's true that you can, in fact, change the Constitution to apply amendments through a lot of approval processes, right? But when it comes down, of course, try to apply the amendments 100% of the time, aren't you not, justifying slavery in a sense if you don't apply, the amendments 100% of the time? For example, according to the 13th Amendment, slavery is outlawed. And so if we don't apply the amendments 100% of the time, I guess it's perfectly fine to have slaves now, thanks to this sort of amendment. Or what about the cases of women's rights? Surely you want to apply women's rights 100% of the time. And so free speech is 100% of the time, the Second Amendment 100% of the time, and anything else is 100% of the time.
I believe the Senate should immediately pass 3 House-passed bills to close loopholes that allow gun purchasers to bypass the background checks. The vast majority of the American people, including gun owners, believe there should be background checks before you purchase a gun. As was noted earlier, hundreds of thousands of people have been denied guns because of the background checks. What more would have happened? These bills, 1, require background checks for anyone purchasing a gun at a gun show or an online sale. Most people don't know. You walk into a store and you buy a gun, you have a background check. But you go to a gun show, you can buy whatever you want and no background check. Second thing is,
that right there is just flat out wrong. Now the first thing he stated was that there's no background checks for online sales and that there is no background checks for gun shows. But that simply is not the case in the slightest. Now, for online sales, the dealers are in fact required to have some sort of background check when you buy a gun. And so it's not like Amazon where there's like, no one that actually checks over what you want to buy. You do in fact have to complete a background check to get a gun online. Number two, when it comes down to gun shows, like licensed dealers are in fact gonna do some sort of background check when someone want to purchase a gun. And so already there's like a lot of lies in this speech, as you guys could probably tell. What is so funny about that statement when Joe Biden stated that there is like no sort of background checks for like gun shows is that the press secretary stated that that was not his belief. And so let's check out the video and let's see how she responded to this whole entire speech part.
Even maybe on their websites.
Very good. All right, then following up, the president said a moment ago, quote, "You go to a gun show, you can buy whatever you want, no background check." Is there a special exemption in federal law that he was referring to, or just do FLA dealers not have to do background checks when they're at a gun show?
Are you asking me if he was referring? No, it's okay. Were you asking me if he was referring to like a specific circumstance? Or I'm sorry, just tell me a little bit more about your question.
I mean, is it the president's belief that you do not have to undergo a background check when you are at a gun show?
No, it's not his belief. He believes.
Oh my goodness. That was like the biggest backpedal. Like he said in the speech, literally, you guys see in the video, that he thinks that there's like no background checks for gun shows. And now she just backpedals. That's amazing.
And we should also eliminate gun manufacturers from the immunity they receive from the Congress. You realize, again, the people here, because they're so knowledgeable on here in the Rose Garden, but what piece of people don't realize, the only industry in America, $1 billion industry, that can't be sued, has exempt from being sued, are gun manufacturers. Imagine how different it would be had that same exemption been available to tobacco companies who knew and lied about the danger they were causing, the cancer caused and the like. Imagine where we'd be. But this is the only outfit that is exempt from being sued.
That is not true. Not in the slightest. Now, again, I'm not some sort of gun expert, and so whatever opinion I have about guns is pretty much misinformed. But what I do know is that if they were to not go out with their warranty, like the companies can in fact be sued by a person if they don't fulfill the warranty. Another thing they can actually sue the gun companies for, if they were to actually sell the gun knowingly that someone's going to actually murder somebody with the gun. Otherwise, like, the companies do in fact have some sort of things that they could be sued about. But the whole entire idea of suing a company because some shooter did like a crime sounds pretty crazy to me in the first place. Because to me, when you drive a car, right, it is not the manufacturer's job. That's like the fault of that manufacturer is that the car guy actually got into some sort of accident or killed somebody with a car. Basically, the person who drove that car that caused that accident and killed that person, my friend, is basically the culprit, like the guy who is really much guilty of what happened. Not the car manufacturer, the person that did it. Similarly, if someone buys a gun and they turn out to be a shooter, I think that person is the guilty one. Not the people who created the gun are the guilty people, but that person who actually murdered people is the one at fault. Because obviously not all people who buy guns are mass murderers. They are responsible gun owners. And so we should go after the people that actually caused the murder, not people who actually, not the people who actually made the guns. That doesn't make any sense to me in the slightest. Again, I want to further emphasize that I have no strong feelings either way about guns or gun control. And so naturally, of course, I might be less informed in comparison to the gun professionals who respond to this video. But from what I've seen so far, it seems as though that Joe Biden started to, lie and manipulate like he always does in his speeches. And so, like, a lot of the stuff that he did in fact say in his speech is very much misinformed. But what do you guys think about the speech? Please tell me in the comment section down below. And as always, I'll see you guys in the next video.